Hello, hello, hello. So welcome to the first Spill Your Heart webinar. I'm super excited to have you here. I always love to do interviews, and with Creative Jumpstart, I really enjoyed having these panel discussions with also Sarah, Caroline, and Seth, but a lot of the other Creative Jumpstart artists as well. And I thought it would be fun to really do a spin-off and do this regularly with some of those questions that have been coming up. And also, I think that you might find interesting and some topics that you find interesting. Today, we're talking about transitioning to a full-time artist. That's our personal journeys, not so much about business advice, because that would be a whole different kind of more like a consulting thing to do. But I quit my job 10 years ago, in January 10 years ago as a paralegal. I was a paralegal for 17 years. And it wasn't like a very light decision to do, which I think we will talk about with the three others here. And in January, I was like, wow, it is 10 years since I quit my job and I'm a full-time artist. And that's kind of crazy to think about. And what went into that? What went into my decision to quit my job? How did I transition to that? But also, you know, what were the things that I still think about my old job? What did that help me, etc. So these are some of the questions that we will address anyway, but then you can also ask some of the questions. So I want to go and introduce our guests here. We have the wonderful Sarah Matthews, who is a print maker, not marker. Well, she makes marks too, but she's a printmaker and book artist. And Sarah used to be an HR manager of a technology company, and she had dreams of being an art teacher, which she definitely is too. Then we have Carolyn Dube, who is a mixed media art adventurer. She has been all kinds of wonderful things. She was a jewelry wholesaler. She owned a pizzeria with her husband. And she made a little joke and said she's still married to him. So that went well. And she also taught over 10 years in public school and did technology consulting before gradually transitioning to art full time. And then we have the awesome Seth Apter here, who has been, who is a mixed media artist, instructor, author, and designer. And his first career was a psychologist, and he became a full-time artist in November 2018. So you have all of us coming from all kinds of different backgrounds. Besides Sarah, I believe none of us has studied art. Sarah, you did, right? As a second before you now are full-time artist. So we can talk about that too a little bit. But my first question is, and I think that is, a good start, is how did we decide to become full-time artists, and how did we prepare for this transition? Like, how long did we mull over this idea? And I have to say, I never started this journey as a mixed media artist with thinking that I would do this full time. I would, work on my projects in the morning and the evenings before and after work. And then I started teaching all over the world and took my vacation time and, my weekends, which is easier said than done, because in Europe, you have a lot of vacation time more than in America. But at some point I was like, wow, I wonder if I could do this full time. And I thought about it. I mulled over it for a couple months, how I would do that, how I would transition to it. And then I had a backup plan. And let's talk about the backup plan later. But how did you decide to do this? And how long did it take you to kind of grasp that idea to quit your job and transition to being a full-time artist? Who wants to go first? No one.
Go first. I'll go
okay,
first.
Caroline.
It was 3 to 4 years that it took me to make the decision. So it was not quick, and it was a back and forth. And essentially I'd say I'm crazy, but I'm not nuts. So I had health insurance, I had a backup, and it was just a gradual transition. I didn't do a hard and cold boom, here it is. Like it's hard for me to pick the time when it happened, because it was just such a gradual. I had to warm myself up to it. And there wasn't a heck of a lot of logic to this, because it's like, well, what's going to happen? I don't know. But I just knew where I wasn't where I wanted to be. And so it was really very much taking that leap and going, here we go. But again, I'm crazy, but not nuts. So I had health insurance. I knew we'd be able to pay bills. I really like what Elizabeth Gilbert says about your creativity is if you expect it to pay the bills right away, that's a hard road. So it didn't pay for itself promptly, shall we say. And that took the pressure off in a big way.
I love, I will go to the other two right away. Love that you mentioned health insurance, because that was a big one for me too. We do in Germany have our actually artist health insurance. And, but that is like, hard knowing when are you defined as an artist? So I didn't go to art school and saying, hey, I'm an artist. Just because I said so might not mean I am for them, but I did get it. And that was a big part for me to make sure that I have health insurance. So Sarah and Seth, I'm gonna give Sarah first the opportunity to tell a little bit about our transition. What about you, Sarah?
So it took me about 5 years to actually pursue being an artist. At the time, was like 5 years into being an HR manager, which was quote unquote my dream job. But once I got to the 5th year, I was like, I could do this with my eyes closed. I'm not sure why I'm doing this. And I always tell the story, but I would go in the morning and pick up my Starbucks, and I would see all these artists in the Starbucks, like doing their things, making their stuff, or handling conference calls or whatever in the Starbucks. And I would sit there waiting in line and would look at them and say, wow, I wish I had that life, right? But I never thought I had a good enough portfolio or anything like that. So it took 5 years for me to even get up I don't know, to actually apply for my art degree. I just didn't feel like I was good enough. So, but I'm glad I did it.
So here's a question. Who of us is actually sitting in the mornings at Starbucks pre-pandemic?
No one.
Zero. Just to make a myth buster here, like, right? I did, however, when I wrote my book, Artful Adventures in Mixed Media, I did go to a cafe once in a while and was very surprised how that helped me to not procrastinate by doing home chores and just really concentrate on writing. I will have to say I'm not weirded out anymore by people going to a cafe and working in a cafe. Seth, how did you transition to being a full-time artist?
Well, I think like everybody said, for me, it was also quite a long transition. It was definitely not an overnight. Originally, I was only interested in art as a hobby. And really, I had no goal initially to make it a career. And in fact, didn't want to make it a career, partly because I wanted to make sure I still enjoyed it. At that time, I was working as a psychologist, and I had originally started working in a hospital in New York City, and then transitioned out of the hospital into a private practice. So being in the private practice gave me a few opportunities to make a transition because I was my own boss and I could make my own decisions. I already had my own healthcare, which I paid for myself already. So I was sort of used to that process. And I had some control. So basically over probably, I don't know, 5 years or so, I similar to what Sarah said, I transitioned. So I had a full-time private practice, which then became 4 days a week. And then over time, it became 3 days a week. And then for quite a long time, it was about a day and a half a week. And I would set these dates in advance. Okay, a year from now, I'm going to move on to be an artist. And then the time would come when I need to make the choices and the decisions. And I would say, I'm not ready. And then I was ready. There was, I did it again. And the last time I did it, I knew it was the right time. But it was a long process.
Yeah, that is, I think that's very similar to all of us. One question that someone asked me before, and which I actually, also thought about, is if we had a backup plan. And I did have one. I mean, I did have my career. I was 17 years a paralegal. So what I was thinking was, okay, if I do this now, if I give notice to my bosses, talking of guts, walking into that office and say, hey, I need a meeting, was that I thought, okay, I'm going to try this for 3 years. I had read some, business stuff about being, your own boss. And 3 years was this number that was kind of like in the air of if you will know if you make it in 3 years. And I was like, 3 years is a good time to be able also to go back as a paralegal in case I don't make it, and will be enough time also, not too much time to not be able to catch up with changes in law and things that you need to be up to date in my career and my profession. So I always had in mind that I would have a fallback to go to that profession. How about you guys? Did you have like a fallback plan that you kind of like had this scenario, not to be doomsday, if that is a word, but like, what happens if I don't make it? I guess, Seth, you kind of did, I bet.
Well, I guess theoretically, I knew that since I had my own private practice, I could reopen it. But I felt really confident that I had taken the time to be in the place. So I had a hard ending. And what I mean by that is that, I had malpractice insurance, I had my license, I was on, a Medicare provider, all the things you need to do what I did. And when I made the decision to leave, I stopped my malpractice. I put my license on hold. I basically retired officially, and I got off all the panels. So for me, I just felt comfortable at that point. A year before, if I had gone ahead and done it, I probably would have not cut off like that.
That is interesting that you were like, I would have not guessed that from you as a, like hard cut. For me, it was a very much, I guess, also my upbringing, because I'm from a single mom and my father died very young. So for me, I needed that backup to be able to tell everyone else in the family so that they don't go bonkers. Sarah, how did you have like a fallback idea, like what you would do if maybe art school would not like, also if you do that, there's one question that you maybe can answer in the same round. You're like, come on, Natalie. Elizabeth wants to know why you decided to do art school as a way to start your journey. So maybe you can address that too in that time. Sorry.
Yeah. So if you know me, I am a career student. I have 4 degrees, and I'm even contemplating doing another one because I just love to learn. And you can hear my 4-year-old crying in the background. Yay. So anyway, it was about 5 years into my job as an HR manager. And my boss sat me down for my one-on-one, and she asked me if there's anything that you wanted to do, like if there was no obstacle in the way, what would you want to do? And I told her, I want to be an art teacher. And she's like, well, we don't have art teachers at Best Buy. So what are we going to do about that? And I said, well, that's like my dream. This is what I really want to do. So what she did was she had it so I could have my schedule 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. And then that extra day I would go to school. But again, I still hadn't applied, you know what I mean? So I, because I still didn't think I had a good enough portfolio, but she kept pushing me. You said you wanted to do this. Let's do this. So I submitted my application and brought every invitation that I had made over the past 10 years, because that's what I did on the side, my side gig, and brought that to my interview and got into the Corcoran College of Art and Design, primarily just to learn letterpress, because that's what I wanted to do to coincide with my invitations. But ended up falling in love with making books and making prints, probably like in the middle of my tenure at the school. So it's just, I don't know why I had to have a degree, but that's just me. Like, I'll take a couple of classes and then I'll look at the schedule and be like, okay, so if I add these 3 classes, I can get a degree, and check. That's just how I am. I'm even thinking about getting a doctorate someday, but that's just how I think.
Very cool. Caroline, how about you?
So I kind of took the approach of, I'm going to say it was the Vikings, that when you land somewhere, you burn the ship so you can't go back. That was really, because I was a public school teacher, and at the time I had too many years experience. If I stepped out, there was no stepping back. So it would mean moving to a completely different state or going into a private school, so that essentially it was a no go back situation. And I'd kind of worked it, so I kept my foot in there for a couple of years doing some consulting. And at the end of that, it was like, okay, pick. But once I stepped out, it was letting the license lapse and those kinds of things. But it was very much of, that is not.
Oh no,
She froze.
you froze for a
Ended
second.
up doing so many different things. Oh, wait, when did I freeze out? Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Am I back? Oh,
You back.
okay, I'm back. Okay. So it's the kind of thing where I knew I'd find a job in something. I never planned most of the jobs I had, so I knew something would come along as long as I didn't have high standards. So if the art didn't work out, I'd find something. But I really was banking on the art to work. And so to do that, I'd really just cut ties. So there was no going back. It was only go forward.
Interesting how different. There's a question directly to you too, Caroline. Elizabeth Newberry wants to know, what grade did you teach, and did you teach art at the public school?
I did not teach art. I taught second grade mostly. And actually an art position opened up and I did not take it. So as the art teacher, I wanted to stay the general ed classroom teacher, because when you're the art teacher, you get to see every kid, but you don't get to know them to the same level. But when you're the classroom teacher, you're with them every day and you really get to know them. And I just couldn't give that up. So that's why I stayed in the classroom, in the gen ed classroom.
Was it the encouragement of others, or can you point to a specific individual or circumstance that thrust you forward to knowing you were good enough and ready to take the leap into the world of art and creativity? I would say for me, it was basically that I was teaching for so many years, since 2006, before I quit my job, that I kind of like knew, because I had so many teaching gigs. You know, I went to Australia and all over Europe, and had a thing going in Malaysia, and I knew, like, you know, there was people wanted me to come and teach, right? So that was kind of like, I knew that there was demand in a way. I mean, it sounds weird to say that, but that I wasn't just making this up to, you know, how do I make a living as an artist? And that was by teaching. And I knew that I could do that. And as supporter, I was highly supported by my husband, who actually studied music and then never became a musician. But he knew how it is if you want to follow that dream. So he was very supportive. I'm going to start with Caroline.
Okay, so seats getting hotter. Okay. So I had a tremendous amount of support. Tremendous amount of support. I did not have much support from my dead relatives, which was part of my problem. Because in my family, you had security and safety. You did not, it sounds very much like the German way of just, you need to know what you're doing and you don't switch jobs all the time. And, but in terms of my living family, they were fantastic. I remember having the conversation with them going, okay, guys, if I do this, we have a lot less money. And that means we're going to vacation a lot closer to home. And, you know, it was not knowing what it was very much a family decision when the final ties were cut. So I had buy-in from everybody, and they were totally on board for it in that sense. Like, let's do this. And they were actually much better with it than I was. Like, I had to work through a lot of things aren't exactly the same. You know, as the mom, you want to be able to provide all the things that you were before. And the reality was we had to shift some stuff. And they were aces with it. And I was the one, of course, with the problem. And so, yeah, it was, yeah. Does that cover it all? Did I hit it all, or did I forget part of the question?
No, I think it is interesting, right? Because we all, you all want to have support, but sometimes support might come from a different place. Like, say, Sarah said that actually her boss was giving her support by allowing her to shift her schedule so that she could go to art school at least once a day in the beginning. That is support that you might not even think of that you get that. But if you don't put it out into the universe, as we say, right, then you won't know who's going to support you, right? What do you guys think, Sarah, Seth?
Can I add to that? So yes, my boss did support me for that for the first 2 years, but then she went off and got promoted. So the second the second set of years, because it took me 4 years to graduate, my boss was not happy with me going to class. I mean, she voiced it so many times. And then there was this juggle between school and work. So at work, there are things that I couldn't go to school for. And then at school, I couldn't go to things at work. So I had to like juggle this, like talk to my professors. Hey, I'm going to miss these classes. Like I would have to look at the syllabus on the day, on the first day of school, look at the syllabus and say, well, I know I'm going to be traveling this day and this day and this day. I'm going to miss these days. And then I'll be at work telling my boss, I'm going to miss such and such because I have my thesis project I have to deliver. So there was always this tug of war, not to mention I have, 3 daughters and a husband at home. So that's another thing. But I was determined to finish no matter what anyone had said to me, because I've already had been through that, with my previous degrees where bosses come to me, because at the time I was a sales associate, they'll come to me and says, hey, we would like to make you a manager, but you're in school, so we're not going to promote you until, either you quit or graduate. And I'm like, I'm graduating. I don't care what you say or how much money you offer me. I'm going to finish my degree. And so I'd already been through that years prior. So this time I was like, I don't care. I work 50 hours a week. I'm going to school, the 2 classes a semester, and I'm going to finish. And I did. I even, the funny thing is, I walked across the stage with my youngest. I was pregnant with her. Like I literally was doing my thesis, screen printing with a big old band of of ink across my belly every day, trying to get my thesis completed. And I walked across stage pregnant, and then end up, going on maternity leave, and was determined to come back to work. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back to work. Yeah, I'm doing it. Show up to work. I went to work for 3 weeks. And I said, this is not for me, because I think I had been off for so long. And I was just like, my body is like exhibiting, telling me that this is not what I need to be doing, period. And I just, on a Sunday morning, I typed up before I went to church, hey, I'm no longer, I'm not coming back. I'm not, don't you, if, how about you know is I'm not going to be here for 2 weeks. Sarah's going, goodbye. And it was the best thing that I could ever have done. So I did spend an entire year, you know, taking care of a baby and of course my other 3 kids, but I didn't make anything for an entire year. But anyway, I'm grateful that I did it. I cut, like Carolyn said, I burned the ship, whatever. I am gone, you know, and I'm glad I did it. I'm really.
We're glad that you did it too, Sarah. So Seth, how about you? And I want to throw in also a question that someone voiced that I think you can maybe put into this too, if you haven't forgotten what I asked in the beginning.
If you want to know, go ahead.
Right. But Tony asks if you considered art therapy when you transitioned, which might be like, given what your profession was before, is a very good question.
Hi, Tony. Honestly, I think there were like 3 or 4 questions thrown in all along. So I guess I'll try to answer them all somewhat succinctly. I definitely was supported. I have a very small family and people were behind me with that, which was great. And then I'm going to leap ahead to that question because honestly, I truly don't remember what was in between. But art therapy, no, I never thought about that. I actually thought, I mean, people ask me that all the time and I'd always say no for several reasons. One, because initially to be an art therapist, you need training to be an art therapist. It's different than just like, I'm going to bring the journal in with my patients. So I had no training, no background. And I already had a pretty well-established practice and approach. So that's kind of what I knew and what I learned. And ironically, in the beginning, when maybe I could have taken the time to make that transition, I used to say, I will never bring art into my practice because I don't want to make art work because I want art to always be play. And then of course now it is my job, but honestly, even though I really work hard, to me, it still seems like play. I mean, I kind of say that after you've worked in the kind of profession that I had for quite a number of years, and then you spend time like slinging paint, like even your worst day is just so good because you're just playing, if that makes sense.
If you sling color all the time. which is come on, let's be a myth buster about that too, because that's actually that.
Oh, how rarely I sling paint.
Yeah, how much do you really sling paint, like in a ratio of?
So I came up with a new artist statement that was for the pandemic, and I said, I can't remember, it's 2 lines. It's something like, I live my life by the computer and sometimes I get to make things.
Exactly.
Because honestly, I will say the longer I've been doing this, the less time I have to actually create. I will definitely say that.
It's a little bit sad. I mean, the thing about like doing the work that you do around it, to make yourself not like, I mean, everyone is like, oh, well, the starving artist. I don't want to be the starving artist, or you know, not because I don't want to be rich either, but I mean, if money falls from the sky, fine. You know, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying like you're working, it's still work in a way too. And at least what you're doing, you do that for something that you love, so, and something that you chose. And I think that's the big difference. You know why you're doing, you know your why, and that's the most important thing to justify all that time on the computer. So sometimes I have to say, okay, that's why I'm doing that. So stop complaining. Oh, but it's hard, right? It's hard that you're definitely do not as much art as you might have seeked out in the beginning when you transitioned to that, right? What was so Patty asked, what was the best or most significant investment you made in the art process, material, retreat, workshop, or class, etc.? I would put that a little bit different because we're talking about our you know, personal journey to transitioning to being an artist. So I would say like what did we invest in besides maybe art material, I guess? I mean, that's what you have to do your trade, I guess. I don't know, as for a business, I think I did some investment in a computer that was like, you know, up to skills to do some graphic stuff. I definitely invested in a suitcase so I can carry my my supplies around when I was traveling. I think Sarah has a couple like printing presses, actually. Sarah, are you frozen?
Yes, I have. No, can you
No,
hear
you're
me?
back now. Yeah, you're good.
I have 3 letterpress. They're small versions though, small letterpress machines, and 3 different etching presses, but they're different sizes. Like, and 2 of them were portable, and one is not. It's so heavy and old. But yeah, I invested it, and then I just recently bought a screen printing press for Christmas for myself. Haven't opened it because I'm gonna do a video on opening it. But like, I just invested in all the presses that I wanted to get, and so I will be able to print as much as I want at home.
And Seth, did you invest into something when you transitioned, like like not
I'm
really?
waiting for you to come up with something. I don't
Like-
really think there was much of an investment at all. I mean, from like the practical standpoint, I already had a private practice, which means that I was already paying for health insurance, which probably would have been my biggest investment had I had that from a job, more traditional job. And I had an office, which I gave up. So if anything, I almost did the opposite. You know, from a perspective, my studio's in my home. So from a perspective of what my monthly outlay was initially, was that it actually, for me, it declined quite significantly. I didn't pay for malpractice insurance. I didn't have to pay for my license. So I kind of de-invested, if that's a word, divested. And you know, most of the stuff that I use is certainly, I mean, I had to buy supplies for teaching classes and for making my own art, but a lot of that had built up anyway over the course of when I was transitioning. So there was there was really no outlay necessary for me.
Very cool. That's great. There's a ton of questions, and it's really interesting to read those questions too. Nancy, who's our dear Nancy Curry, we all know her. Hey, Nancy, good to see you. You said, do you feel more internal pressure to succeed now that you've defined yourselves and are focused on your business and business model? I do, I would say. I think because, you know, I want to take this seriously, and I want to be taken seriously, although I do everything to be a goof. But and someone else asked that question, and also that I think we could tie into that is, how do you feel when you introduce yourself as an artist? And I know especially you know, a lot of people in Germany say, oh, what was the art school you went to, or where do you exhibit? I love that question too. Like, what gallery you work with. I have a lot of like artist friends that are fine artists, and they exhibit in galleries too. And so it's like, or they have a gallery that represent. And then I'm like, well, I don't have a gallery. Like, so I mean, it's a little bit like, okay, how do you define? I guess that's a broader question than just for us, of course, as transitioning in careers, but how do you define yourself as an artist? Do you have to be, you know, have you had to be in art school? How do you define success as an artist? Do you have to be in a gallery? Do you teach? Very philosophical, but let's see what the other ones are saying to these questions. Who wants to go first, Caroline?
Well, gee, I'll go first. So one of the things it's really been a journey for me to make peace with being an artist, because to be an artist, there were a couple of things that you had to do. One, you had to be able to draw something realistically people would think it was a photograph. First thing you had to do. Second thing is you had to sell it in galleries. And third thing is it had to be expensive. That was the definition of artist that was embedded in me growing up. Only here's the thing is when I really tried to make peace with, I wanted to call myself an artist, but I was scared to do that publicly. And it was really a lot of internal struggle. I started going, well, let's define art. Oh, wait, nobody can define art. Wait. And I've so enjoyed going through museums and looking at work by some artists that I have absolutely no connection to. Like it resonates in no way with me. I'm just like, okay. And then other things that I am so drawn into and I cannot stop looking at. And it's, why is one less of an artist than the other? When you look at some of the stuff like Rothko, and it's a painted red square. It's a red square. But yet there is so much more to it than that. But is there a lot of technical skill to the red square? I'd say maybe not. But yet there's so much more depth to it. So to simply define artist as this or that, it's just hard to define. I mean, Van Gogh couldn't sell a painting. I mean, like if the man can't sell a painting, why are any of us beating ourselves up if we can't sell a painting? like really, like that, count me in that group, sure. So it was very much an internal journey of how to say, I am an artist. And I have no idea now if I'm on topic or off topic. Wow. Just sort of the train just kind of went that way.
No, I think it is off. It is on topic. Oh my God, you're on topic. It's all good. I'm sorry. No, you're on topic. I think it's all on topic because I think I hope I find this really interesting to discuss with you guys, and I hope that our audience does too. 192 people here. I'm like, oh my God, this doesn't, I'm not looking at the numbers, makes me nervous. So that's true. How did you, I know I'm gonna go last to Sarah because she went to art school. Seth, how did you feel about like calling yourself an artist?
I'm one of those people who think we're all artists. So for me, the label was not anything special in the sense that I know some people feel like you do have to meet certain credentials, and other people don't call themselves artists because they think it's a little too highfalutin, like artist with a capital A or artiste. To me, I always looked at it that like you have a kid, you're a parent. You make stuff, you're an artist. For me, it's as flat, as simple as that. And every time I teach, and the way I teach, we're not all following the same, like put the thing in the left corner kind of thing. Every single person's creation is different. And it just proves to me every time I see that people are just putting who they are out on whatever they're working on, that to me, that's almost the definition of the artist, of an artist. So yeah, honestly, like no issue at all with calling myself an artist, and every single person, all 190, whatever of you out there are artists in my book.
I love that. And so I wonder now, Sarah, you went to art school. So for you, it must have been so much easier to just define yourself as an artist, wasn't it? I'm just kidding.
No. Like I said, I didn't feel like I had a good enough portfolio to even go to art school, let alone apply for art school. So, and even after I graduated, I still didn't call myself an artist for a very long time. Like I said, after I had my youngest, I didn't make anything for an entire year. And then someone sent me like an email for big ink prints, which I don't even know how I got the email. I really don't. But basically, you had to make this large scale woodblock print. And so you basically carve your block, bring it to them, and then they would print it for you or print it with you. And the largest print I've ever carved is probably about this size. So to carve 2 feet by 4 feet was crazy, but I was like, I haven't done anything. I got to do something. And I signed up and was accepted. And I carved that wood the night before. Showed up, they ran the thing to the press, and then when they pulled the print off the press, I was like, I'm an artist. finally. Finally, even though I went to thesis and all that, it was long after I graduated.
That is amazing that you have this like really defining moment where you actually felt it deep in your heart. I remember that I would call myself an artist after I quit and I taught and I painted. But I would sometimes refer to friends that were, went to art school and were painters and had gallery representation. And one of my friends, Adam, who's even in several museums with his work represented, I said one time, I introduced him to another group of friends and I said, this is Adam, he's a real artist. And Adam took me aside, and it's like someone I like love as a friend, but also highly admire as an artist. And he said, why do you say that? You're an artist in my book. Like, you make art, you're an artist. Yeah, and that was a defining moment for me, when someone that I looked up to and I referred to as a real artist kind of like told me to stop degrading myself because I had this weird little monkey in my head telling me, wow, but you're not really an artist. And that was an eye opener to kind of like, calm down on that. And yeah, if I say I make art and I'm an artist, that should be good enough. You don't have to like my art. Let's put it that way, right? So that's a different topic, right? That's a different thing. Very cool. Before I go to a couple more questions, I want to point out, because Sarah and I love to do collaborations, and Sarah and I have been friends for a while now, and we have been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And I just want to give a shout out that Sarah and I are coming out with our very own Zoom cast. Get it? Podcast, but it's on Zoom. Starting next week. We're calling it Art Collab, and we cannot wait to tell you more about it. And we're putting it out in the universe, because that means that we're finally recording our first episode next week. Yes. And we will let you know when it's recorded, hopefully also next week, and distribute that. So Art Collab with Sarah and Nat. Here we go. Here we are. What would you do differently now that would make your career easier, says Julia Slayton. So I guess, Julia, you mean like, if we know what we know now, hindsight, 2020, not a good thing to say anymore. But if we would know, what we would do differently. I'm gonna ask Seth first. Is there anything you would do differently if you look back now?
I'm gonna say no, which is kind of weird, but honestly, I feel like I've sort of had this magical situation happen to me. I 100% love my first career. I mean, it was very meaningful. It was very fulfilling. It took me a long time to get to be able to, lots of school to do what I did. But I also love my second career. And there was just this sort of truly like seamless transition. And I'm not suggesting there weren't bad days and dips and problems and issues like that, but that's going to happen anytime. I don't know. I don't know the way it unfolded. I think it unfolded in a way that was so magical because it was not something that was ever my dream. I know a lot of people out there are like, I always want to be an artist as a kid, but then my parents stopped me or my teachers stopped me. For me, I never made anything as a younger person. It was just not a dream. So I wasn't even really working toward it or like desperate for it or hoping for it. It just sort of happened. So I don't know. I just like things to unfold. So that might not be a very helpful or satisfying answer, but it's the truth.
No, it actually answered Sarah Kelly's question that she had too. So you did two flies with one No, you do that differently in America. I don't know. We do two flies with one flap in Germany. I think you kill birds. You
Birds with
Americans.
one
Two
stone.
birds with one stone. Kill birds.
You guys kill birds. It's good to think like saying, it just came naturally and you didn't really, I mean, you planned transitioning, but you didn't really plan out what was happening. And I think that's the same for me. Things just happened and then a door opened. Doors that I thought would open, they closed right in front of my nose and I had nose bleeding, but then I turned around and I found another door or window. How about you, Caroline? Did you, like, if you look back, would you do something different?
I'd probably go back to 14-year-old me and just say oops. Like, I wish I'd figured out oops a whole lot sooner in my life. My children wish I'd figured it out a whole lot sooner. And for those that don't know, oops is outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. And, they're not mistakes. There's always something to be gained from it. And as I look back over the jobs that I held throughout the years, there is something that I learned contributed to where I'm at now. There's been something that's useful for me being an artist. And I wouldn't have known that. Oh, did I freeze again? Oh,
Come,
am I
go,
frozen?
go,
No?
go.
Yes.
You're good,
You're
you're
back.
good.
You're
You're
back.
good.
We're back. Okay, good. I can tell by Nat's face. I'm like, I think I'm frozen. I don't know if they're hearing me. Oh boy. Sorry, my internet is just apparently on sort of vacation. But no, just to go back and say that to myself, because there's something that I've gotten from every job that has been so helpful that I didn't know at the time. There's something lesson learned or some skill that I picked up or some place where I have more confidence because of something that I've done in those jobs that helped me now. And I didn't, I remember being 18 going, what am I going to do with my life? Oh gosh, I remember being 20, what am I going to do at 25? What's it going to, and now that I'm here, I'm like, oh yeah, that all did work out. Okay. So I tell myself to just relax, say, oops.
I think that's a really good point that you bring up too, that everything that you learned, in your careers before definitely helped you. I can definitely say that for what I'm doing. And I think I'm going to put that out and see what Sarah says to that. But I think that because we had a different career before, if I look at young artists that come right out of artist school after school, that having this career, it also helps you kind of like realizing how you actually earn money, like to organize yourself, how to be really good at when you work with a store or retailer or event manager to do your events, that you have to write up things, you have to be on time, you have to do deadlines, how to organize yourself. And I think that that's one part. I know how to do bookkeeping, I know how to read a contract, etc. So in a way that might have become easier doing this in a later part of my life. How about you, Sarah? Do you agree with that whatever you learned before in your 500 degrees that you made before and your career as HR, do you feel that helps you for your career now as a full-time artist?
Absolutely. I think it shapes who I am. And I draw on those experiences all the time. Um, it, it's funny because when you first asked the question, I was like, yes. But then as I'm listening, I'm like, no, because I'm glad I went through those experiences. Because I wanted to say that I wish I didn't go back to work those 3 weeks. But then I'm like, I'm glad I did, because now I can say I tried everything and I don't have any regrets. Like, I can say that I tried everything and I found out what I didn't like and I found out what I liked. And so now I'm going to go with what I like to do.
I think we answered Traces. Did you find that people did not understand how you're making a living? Artists tend to make people nod their head. like it is not a living. I guess there are some people, and we addressed that a little bit before, that might not get it. And then it's like, well, for someone else,
Can't
like,
explain everything to everybody and they get it. I mean, that's what I've learned. So
right. And
what I've been doing is just like, if someone says, what kind of artist are you? I just send them to my website. Just go look at the website and call me later. I can't, I'm not gonna sit here and explain to you exactly
me
what I
later.
do. Like I
I will say,
I have time.
I will say
right.
my 98-year-old great aunt, she never understood what I did on a computer. What do you do on a computer? What do you, how, like, I could explain to her 100 times. She was never going to get it. Like, she just didn't understand.
I think, yeah. And I think that's, I know other people, like no one understands what my husband does either. So, and, he says, I don't know, customer success something. And I'm like, okay. People are like, what is he doing? I'm like, I don't know. So it's not just us, right? So it can be other people too, right? Judy Field asks, to all the panelists, do you have studios separate from your home, or do you close the door to your in-home studio at the end of the day? Any feedback on this? I can tell you right now, because you see the mess behind me. We just got a house from a small apartment where I was actually just working in a city apartment on the landing of a staircase, which was tiny and not that great. Now I have my own studio, which I'm very grateful to, but the door that you see in the background, that's actually the entrance door to our house. And then the stairway is behind the wall easel that you see there. So everyone who comes in the house pre-pandemic, now we don't have people anymore, I guess, would see my mess. So that is a little bit challenging. So it's a trade-off having a big studio. And of course, my husband sees everything that's in here too. So I have to keep it a little bit, cool. But yeah, that's nice to finally have a bigger studio space and to just work on different projects at the same time. Closing off the door is now easier because, once I go upstairs, I'm upstairs. I would wish, though, there was 2 rooms here. I know, now I'm stretching it, to have the computer in a different room. That is sometimes a little bit tough to have it all in one room. How about, who am I starting with now? I'm gonna gunpoint to, sorry, Seth. We know you live in New York City in a small apartment.
Yeah, I live in New York City. My studio is in my home. You can see part of it behind me. A couple things. It did occur to me to maybe look for a studio space outside when I went full time, and I did. And you don't need to live in New York City to know that you would literally pay like $1,500 for, and I'm no exaggeration, if you can find a 4 foot by 4 foot spot with like no windows, and that's not an exaggeration. And it's up from there. So I ended up staying here, and I'm happy I did, because it allowed me to work straight through, the pandemic and not have to deal with transportation or public transportation or anything. But what I will say is, although there is a door to this room, and it is it is a room, the door never shuts, because seriously, I pretty much do this 24/7. I mean, yeah, there's never a defining moment where the door shuts and my workday is over for me, the way I work.
Sarah, I know you, I know actually what your setting is, so it's gonna be, tell us.
So I have a small, I guess, closet of stuff downstairs in the basement. And yeah, it's a desk in there. And occasionally I did work in that area. But now that my kids are doing homeschool and I got to be up here when they're doing homeschool, I'm basically in my living room right now. We brought up a desk. I have a couple of containers full of stuff right here, and I'm just doing the work here out in the open. And yes, I do get interrupted all the time. There's no door, but you got to do what you got to do.
They're the cutest interrupters though ever. Caroline, you just moved and you're in your brand new amazing studio. I also think you just did a studio tour actually, right? Where you showed a film. So check that one out on her social media. So what about you? What about your studio setting?
There's literally no door. So it's just up the stairs. I kind of claimed the upstairs of the house for this, and I'm very much like Seth because things will go in phases and waves. And so there's sometimes where I'll work 16 hours because you're just so inspired, the adrenaline's going, and you don't. And then there'll be sometimes where I'll go like 3 days and I don't. Like it's just it's unpredictable. And I like having it at home because I don't want to have to go somewhere. Because if I'm working at 10 o'clock at night to deal with coming home or, parking, because wherever I could afford a studio is not going to be, how shall we say, the finest neighborhood. So you've got those kind of restrictions when it's outside the home. However, it would be nice to also be able to completely separate work from home.
Oh no.
I'm used to
We
navigating
lost
through.
her again.
We lost her again. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Oh, Caroline, we got. I'm so sorry. Oh, it is the time being right now. I think everyone knows how that is. So, Caroline, I want to go a last question that is actually from me, and I'm sorry that we can't get to all the amazing questions that are in the chat, but we have been on for an hour now. So I want to finish it up and we will be back. Let me give some final words to that after the final question. But I ask everyone here of our panelists, what is one word that you would tell your former self who was struggling to make a decision about whether to go full time? My word would be, which is also the word for 2021 for me, persist. Just persist, keep on going. Caroline, before you freeze again.
I'm just going to go with oops. You can't make a wrong decision. Oops, there's an opportunity in everything that happens.
That's a good word. Sarah, what's your one word?
I'm going to go with love. So if you don't love what you're doing, then you're doing it wrong.
Oh, how do you top that, Seth?
I can't. I'm going to go with love. I'm going to break the rules because I don't like rules. So I'm going to give a hyphenated, 3 words hyphenated, just do it.
Nice one. I like it. Just do it is good.
Just do it.
That was so awesome. Thank you guys so much for being my guests for the first episode. I hope everyone had a great time. Sorry again, we couldn't answer all questions. I'm tempted to answer them all, but we will be here the next 3 weeks, I think. And I just want to let you know that the next topic is going to be, the next guest is going to be Karen Auld, who some of you guys know from Creative Jumpstart. We're going to talk about the beginner's mindset, how you put yourself back into being a beginner again and why that is important. Registration opens soon from me, and I hope you will sign up for my newsletter if you want to hear about the new and next episodes. I definitely hope I will have Sarah, Caroline, and Caroline, and Seth back. I already have them put down for some other topics. I have a list of topics. But speaking of topics, if you guys that were here today and joined us have any questions, topics you would have addressed, or suggestions for people I should have on as panelists, please do that. And I also hope you will check out Sarah, Caroline's, and Seth's links. I will put those in the recording as well, or you have gotten them also in the registration to their social media and take their classes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a lot of fun.